In this module, we're going to talk about extracting pain. Now, how did we get here? We already talked about why you needed a system. We talked about establishing the rules, and we spent 3 modules going over extracting truth, meaning, and intent. In this module, we're going over extracting pain. Now, pain has been brought up in multiple sales training programs, and they say you got to find pain, but when they say you got to find pain, they don't really explain what it means to find pain. They just say find pain and move on. And for me, in real estate, I thought, oh, they're in foreclosure, they're in pain. Or they're going through divorce, they're in pain. But that's totally surface level, because when they're in foreclosure, it's entirely intellectual, right? We're not talking about they're stressed out about where the next meal is going to come from. They're not talking about the car getting repossessed. We're not talking about maxed out credit cards, don't know where we're going to put the kids, fights with the spouse, and so on, which are all the pain. That's the real pain versus the pain symptom of a foreclosure notice. And so if you watched any crime movie where there's a gun scene, what typically happens is someone gets shot and they go to a veterinarian at 2 or 3 in the morning, because if you go to a hospital, they're going to call the police, right? So they always go to a veterinarian, and when they try to pull the bullet out, there's usually no anesthesia, so it's really painful. Now, I have never been shot, right? But I imagine the pain of the bullet wound versus the pain of them extracting the bullet is vastly different. And so when we're talking about the bullet wound, that is a pain symptom, but actually extracting the bullet is really where we're talking about finding pain. Now, that's probably a little gory, a little graphic for you, but this is what we have to do when we're finding pain. And if you watch some of these movies, they might have to extract the bullet 3 different times because they lost it the first 2 times. And in our way, this is a little symbolic of us going through the pain at least 3 times. When you're driving your car, there's normally 2 dials. You got the speedometer, which tells you how fast you're going, and you got the tachometer, which tells you how many revolutions per minute your engine's going, which is, who cares, right? We're just talking semantics here. Well, what I'm talking about is if you look at the tachometer, it goes from green to red. And if you stay in the red, you're going to damage your car. And so what we want to talk about here, how this applies to us, is we got a painometer. And we got 6 different spots on the painometer that we're looking for, right? Problem, reason, impact, how it's affecting them personally, what's costing them, and knowing all that, how do they feel about it? Which you've heard me say a couple times already. Knowing that, how do you feel? And so how this applies is I went to the doctor, right? And for me, I love working. There's nothing worse to me than not working, and that probably sounds a little crazy. So I don't know what it is about doctor's offices, but I'm convinced that they have this massive strategy to figure out how to waste as many people's time as possible. So I know if I show up to a doctor's appointment after 12 o'clock, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour wait. So I always book my appointments at 8 a.m. So I go to the doctor's office at 8 a.m. because they can't possibly be late at 8 a.m. And I'm already irritated because I like to work. Now, I show up and they always ask you the same 2 questions. Have you moved, and has your insurance changed? And the answer is almost always no and no. And even though you tell them your insurance hasn't changed and you haven't moved, they still ask you for an updated insurance card. Why? And then after that, I always offer to pay my deductible, and they say, oh, you don't have a deductible. I say, okay. And then they ask me for my payment for last time because I didn't pay my deductible last time. Again, you see, like, I'm just getting a little bit more irritated. And then they ask you to sign the updated HIPAA forms, right? Why has this changed? Why do we have to sign an updated HIPAA form every single time? But we do. And again, I'm getting more irritated. And after dealing with the receptionist, we sit down and we wait. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And then the nurse takes you back to weigh you and check your blood pressure, and then takes you back to the doctor's office, and we do some more small talk and whatever, why are you in here? Whatever. And then you wait another 20 minutes, and then you finally get to see the doctor. And what happens? More small talk. How you doing? How's your family? Blah, blah, blah. I don't care, right? Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of the meeting. And he's reviewing my blood work, and he's looking at it and say, oh, this looks good, this looks good, this looks good. And then he says, huh, as if he's never seen this happen before. And his question is, Steve, does anyone in your family have a history of liver disease? Where am I now on this painometer, right? I went from problem to reason to impact, right? I'm in the yellow, orange area, right? So in waiting and all that small talk, I gradually went to yellow. I'm right now in yellow and orange. And he says, well, Steve, it could be one of three things. It could be a tumor, hepatitis, or you're obese. Where am I now on this painometer? Do I care at this point how much it's gonna cost to fix me? If he said, Steve, it's gonna be $30,000 to fix you, am I gonna hesitate to swipe? If he says it's $100,000, am I gonna hesitate to get a note on my house? If he said it was $5 million, would I hesitate at all? Or I say, no, $5 million, you know what? That's not worth it. I don't need to get this fixed, right? As you can see, this is 2017. I just had my third daughter. I just moved into my new space. I've got about 100 people that rely on me. I have to get this fixed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that is your responsibility as a professional home buyer to get the homeowner from green to yellow to orange to red, just like the doctor did to me. Now, for your peace of mind, I was able to get the blood work done, no hepatitis, and I got the ultrasound done immediately, no tumor. So it turns out I was just overweight, and that's the reason why I work out 5 days a week, every single morning. Going back to our example earlier, you can see there's a difference between pain indicators, the foreclosure notice, and personal pain. All these different ways is affecting the person and their family. So why is it so important to dive deep into pain? Well, we know through research that 100% of decisions are made emotionally and then justified intellectually. Now, you may disagree. When we do our workshops live in person, we usually hear votes between 70% to 90% that decisions are made emotionally. But we know this from research. There are people that have had traumatic brain injuries. And what we found is that people that had the traumatic brain injuries where they are no longer able to process emotions cannot make a decision to save their lives. And so we know people buy emotionally and then they justify intellectually. So let me share with you a couple of examples. If you follow me, you know I'm a big car geek, right? And so I bought an Audi S4 many, many years ago. Actually a distress sale from a doctor who bought a Porsche 911 Turbo without talking to his wife, right? So he had to dump his Audi S4. So I bought this car. It's stickered for $68,000. I bought it for $35,000. 3 years used with low mileage. Now, German engineering is absolutely incredible. They have a way so that as soon as the warranty expires, the car starts falling apart. And so I take the car in to the dealership, right? It's German engineering. I want only their people working on it. So I bring it in to get it worked on after the warranty expires. Costs about $3,000 to make the necessary repairs. Transmission, headlights, all that fun stuff. And so I'm walking around the dealership because what do you do when you take your car in to get fixed? You check out the new cars. And so I sit in a newer Audi and it's amazing. It felt like these bucket seats were designed perfectly for my rear. And then you smell that new car smell. It's smelling pretty good. And then you put your hands on the leather stitching. And you start thinking to yourself, you know, my car payments are $328 a month. And I just spent $3,000. And broken out, that's about $250 a month. I can reasonably justify spending $578 a month on a new car. And what did I do? I got a new car. Was that intellectual or emotional? And if you look at my profile on a predictive index, which is a whole nother thing, my strongest point is making decisions objectively based off of facts. But I am not infallible because decisions are made emotionally and then justified intellectually. So I'll give you another example. My wife and I was really pushing hard to buy a Tesla Model X. My friend Greg was the one that told me about the Model X before it even came out. It's been on my vision board. I loved it. I actually have a photo here of my kids in the car at Scottsdale Fashion Square. So I tried to get my wife to buy it, and what did she say to me? We cannot reasonably justify spending $100,000 on a car, which is reasonable. So I tell my friend Greg, hey, you know what? That Model X is off the table. We're not buying it. And he says to me, well, have you told your wife it's the safest possible car you can buy? And I said, no, I haven't done that. So I go back home. I tell her, well, honey, what makes a house a home? And she says, well, the people in it. Right. So wouldn't it make sense to spend as much on a car as you would at a home to protect the people that make the house a home? Well, now I've been able to justify it for her logically. Now we can go to the showroom and have her test drive it, and what did we do? We got a Tesla Model X. Now, we didn't spend $100,000. After federal subsidies, at that time, it was below $90,000. So it wasn't as bad as she thought it was going to be. How does this apply to us? Well, when you're meeting with homeowners, I want you to recognize that not every homeowner is a real seller for us, right? We are not targeting 100% of homeowners. We are targeting the 2 to 6% of the market at any time that needs a cash offer. Obviously, I believe in sales. I'm teaching this course. I'm very passionate about sales. But I readily recognize that our sales stuff does not matter until we're able to market effectively. There's a saying that professionals sift and sort and amateurs convince. First things first, we need to market to these people to find the people that will accept a cash offer from us. And then at that point, we apply our sales skills to convince them to work with us above any other options. Another thing that happens a lot is you'll talk to somebody and you know they've got pain. You know there's something going on, but they're really keeping their cards close to the chest. And so something I'll say is, we've been talking for about half an hour now, and I haven't heard one compelling reason why we should do business together. What am I missing? And you will find from this expression, from this statement, that now they're going to open up and share with you. And hey, if they don't open up with you and share with you, this is the time to leave, right? So not every homeowner is a real seller for us. Hopefully by now, I've been able to convince you the importance of using pain as part of our process. So how do we open pain? Well, we spent 3 modules going extracting truth, meaning, intent. But what we want to do is actually pick up from when we established the rules, right? Remember we said, if it's yes or a no, I'm going to take it as a no. Is that fair? Can I share with my biggest fear? Now we're going into pain. And the simple question, there's 3 ways to open it. First one is simple. Why am I here? Max does this all the time. Boy, this home is beautiful. I don't even know. Why am I here? The other one is, how are you hoping that we can help you? And the last one is, if you were able to sign homework on the previous call, which we'll talk about later on, then we'll just go over the homework. Remember on our last call, you were going to write down 2 or 3 of your biggest concerns about selling your home to an investor like myself? What did you write down? And whatever they tell you here, you can start talking about that to begin the pain process. If you're watching this module, odds are you want to get paid like a doctor or even more. Well, if you want to get paid like a doctor, you need to learn how to ask questions like a doctor. Let's say you walked into your doctor's office right now and you said, Doc, I've got some back pain. And he looks at his watch and says, boy, I am so glad you came in here. We just had a cancellation. Come back in 30 minutes and we can begin operating. How are you going to feel? Well, that's what happens when a homeowner asks you for a price and you give them the price. You are prescribing without diagnosing. So then how do we diagnose? Here's some questions a doctor might ask you if you had some back pain. Can you tell me more about the back pain? When's the last time it hurt? How long has this been going on? What have you tried to do about it? Did that work? Who else knows about this? How do you feel about it? Have you given up on trying to deal with the back pain? What would happen if we can't help you? Now let's talk about potential foreclosure situation. Can you tell me more about this foreclosure? Well, I got my hours cut back. Oh, I see. Can you tell me about the last time you got your hours cut back? As a matter of fact, it was 3 weeks ago. Oh, how long have you been getting your hours cut back? It's been about a year now. What do you try to do about it? Try to talk to my mom, try to talk to my rich aunt, try to get another job, whatever it is. Did that work? No. What else have you tried? I've called the bank, blah, blah, blah. How'd that go? Didn't really work well either. Well, how far behind are you on this? I'm actually back, 6 months plus payments, blah, 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 18,000. Oh, I see. How do you feel about that? I'm really frustrated. I don't know what I'm going to do. Have you given up trying to resolve this? No, that's why you're here. Got it. Who else knows about this? No, only my mom. She's the only one I've told about this. Okay. Well, what would happen if we can't help you? You can see here, right? We're going through and we're uncovering, actively re-traumatizing the patient in front of us. Now that might sound kind of crazy, but that is actively our goal, because remember, people buy emotionally and they justify intellectually. Now, we also want to go through this multiple times. One of the things we always say is listen, rinse, and repeat. So we heard him say, potentially, well, I went to go get another job. Got it. Tell me more about that. How was it trying to get another job? Well, I had all these interviews. Okay. When's the last time you went to an interview? As a matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago. How did it go? Didn't work out well. What else have you tried? Talk to my rich family members. Okay, how'd that go, right? And we're going through this whole thing all over again. Now, after you've gone through pain, right, ideally 2 times, maybe 3 times, we want to go shopping. And what I mean by that is you want to get them actively spending that money. So let's pretend 30 days has gone by. We've bought your house. Money is in your bank account. What's the first thing you're doing with the money? We want them to start spending it, right? Because once they start spending it, again, they're emotionally committed to working with you, right? This excitement they're getting in spending that money, they're going to tie it to you. So what are you doing with the money? Or you might say, let's pretend I walked in here today with a briefcase full of cash. I was able to give you exactly what you needed. What are you going to do with the money? Something else you can say to a prospect is, let's pretend we agree to work together and everything's taken care of. Going to bed tonight, you know you can rest your head on your pillow knowing everything's resolved. How would that make you feel? And what we're doing here, again, is we're bringing in the positive emotions and we want them to tie it to us. So them working with us is going to make them feel better. How will you know that you've arrived at your destination? Well, you're going to hear words like frustrated, anxious, worried, angry, concerned, tired, pissed off, exhausted, overwhelmed. When you hear these words, you've arrived. And I bring up this point is you don't want to go too much further beyond this point, because if you do, you might get them to fall apart in front of you. And that is not the goal here. We're not trying to get someone to break down in front of us. We're trying to get them to be emotionally committed so that they'll work with us. The last thing I'll say here about pain is you got to get uncomfortable. You have a responsibility to the homeowner as a professional home buyer to get you and the homeowner uncomfortable. Now, I grew up as the oldest son of 6 boys in an immigrant family. Having feelings was not a luxury that we had in our home. So I get uncomfortable at times. And you know what? We get through it anyway. And the reason why is because if you won't get uncomfortable for you and the homeowner, they're not going to get committed to you. And if they're not committed to working with you, you're going to subject them to every other wholesaler in the market. And those other wholesalers in your market may not have the same integrity and intentions as you. So if you want to buy their house, you have a responsibility to get uncomfortable for you and the homeowner. Do not let your ego and comfort get in the way of doing business here.